While walking the dog, the doctor saw a coffin stranded on the riverbank, and when he lifted the lid, he couldn't believe his eyes. You're about to embark on a journey full of mystery, courage, and emotional discoveries. Thomas Whitaker, a renowned lawyer, finds a mysterious young girl hidden in a box by the river. As Thomas investigates, he uncovers an ancient artifact and secrets that put everyone in danger. The morning sun rose over the horizon, bathing the small town of Riverside in its soft light. In the quiet neighborhood where renowned lawyer Thomas Whitaker lived, the streets were lined with centuries-old trees, and the well-kept gardens reflected the community's tranquility. Thomas, a middle-aged man with an athletic build and gray hair, was known not only for his legal skills, but also for his morning routine of walking his golden retriever, Max. That morning, while walking along the banks of the river that wound through the town, Thomas felt an unusual unease. The usual silence was interrupted by a faint, almost imperceptible sound of creaking wood. Max, with his keen instincts, ran ahead, sniffing something near the riverbank. Thomas quickened his pace, curious to see what had caught Max's attention. As he got closer, he saw a large wooden box stranded on the rocks, partially submerged in the water. The box, with signs of wear and moss, appeared to have been carried by the current for some time. The lawyer looked around, searching for signs of someone who might have lost the box, but there was no one. Max continued sniffing and barking at the box, further piquing Thomas's curiosity. Reluctantly, he bent down and, with effort, managed to lift the heavy lid. When the lid finally opened, Thomas recoiled in surprise. Inside the box, curled up and trembling, was a girl of about 8 years old, with disheveled blonde hair and wide, frightened blue eyes. Her clothes were dirty and torn, and her face showed signs of exhaustion and despair. Thomas, initially stunned, quickly recovered. He reached out to the girl, trying to calm her. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now," he said in a soft voice, trying not to scare her further. The girl hesitated but, after a moment, took Thomas's hand and was helped out of the box. She looked around, as if expecting someone to be chasing her. "What's your name?" Thomas asked as he took off his jacket and draped it over the girl's shoulders. "Emily," she replied, her voice barely audible. Thomas nodded, trying to convey reassurance. "Emily, are you hurt? Do you need a doctor?" Emily shook her head, but her eyes still reflected fear. "Let's go to my house. You can take a bath and eat something there. We can talk about what happened, okay?" Emily nodded again, and Thomas, holding her hand, began walking back home with Max by their side. As they crossed the quiet streets, Thomas's mind was buzzing with questions. Who was Emily? What had led her to hide in that box? As they arrived home, Thomas introduced Emily to his daughter, Lily, a 14-year-old with a kind soul and a welcoming smile. Lily quickly took Emily under her wing, helping her feel safe and comfortable. Thomas watched the two interact, feeling a knot form in his stomach. He knew that this unexpected discovery would change their lives in ways he could not yet predict. And as Emily began to relax, Thomas felt he had only just begun to uncover a deep and dangerous mystery. The following morning, after a restless night, Thomas awoke determined to learn more about the mysterious Emily. The girl had slept in one of the guest rooms, with Lily watching over her throughout the night. When Thomas came down to the kitchen, he found the two girls having breakfast in a comfortable silence. "Good morning, Emily," Thomas said, trying to sound as calm as possible. "Did you sleep well?" Emily nodded timidly, still visibly wary. Thomas grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down at the table with them. "Emily, I need to know what happened. Why were you in that box? Who are the bad men you're running from?" Emily bit her lower lip and looked at Lily, who encouraged her with a smile. "You can trust my dad, Emily," Lily said softly. "He'll help you." The girl took a deep breath and began to speak, her trembling voice reflecting recent trauma. "My grandma," Emily began, tears welling up in her eyes. "They hurt my grandma. She tried to protect me, but they hurt her really badly." Thomas felt a pang in his heart hearing this. He knew he had to stay calm not to scare the girl further. "Where did this happen, Emily? Who are these men?" "At our house in the woods. They were looking for something. Grandma told me to hide in the box and wait. Then I heard noises and ran. I didn't know where to go. I just wanted to escape." Thomas exchanged a worried glance with Lily. The situation was clearly more serious than he had imagined. "Emily, do you know what they were looking for?" Emily shook her head, wiping her tears with the sleeve of the shirt Lily had lent her. "I don't know, but Grandma seemed really scared. She told me not to let them find me." Thomas sighed and ran his hand through his hair, thinking about the next step. He knew he needed to protect Emily, but he also had to find out who these men were and what they wanted. "Emily, would you mind if I called the police? They can help us find these men and make sure you're safe." Emily's eyes widened in fear, and she clung to Thomas's hand. "No, please don't call the police. They said they would find me if I told anyone." Thomas took a deep breath. The situation was complex, and he needed to act cautiously. "Okay, Emily, we won't call the police for now, but we need to find out who these men are and why they're after you. I promise you'll be safe here." Emily nodded, still scared but seemed to trust Thomas. He looked at Lily, who was determined to help. "Lily, can you take care of Emily for a while? I need to make some calls." "Of course, Dad," Lily replied, hugging Emily from the side. "Let's draw something, Emily." Emily smiled slightly and followed Lily to the living room. Thomas picked up the phone and started calling some trusted contacts, including a retired police officer friend, Jake, who had worked with him on some cases in the past. Jake answered on the second ring. "Thomas, long time no talk. What brings you to call so early?" Thomas quickly explained the situation, careful not to alarm Emily further. "I need you to help me investigate this discreetly, Jake. The girl is terrified, and the men who attacked her are still out there." "Got it, Thomas. I'll see what I can find out. Keep the girl safe and let me know if anything else happens." Thomas thanked him and hung up, feeling a huge weight on his shoulders. He needed to protect Emily and find the truth, but he knew he was dealing with something much bigger than he could imagine. Meanwhile, Emily and Lily were sitting in the living room, drawing in a notebook. Lily tried to distract Emily with funny stories, but the girl still seemed scared. "Emily, my dad is really good at what he does. He'll help keep you safe," Lily said, trying to reassure her friend. Emily smiled slightly, appreciating Lily's effort. She felt grateful to have found such good people at such a difficult time. Thomas watched the two girls from a distance, feeling a wave of determination. He wouldn't let anything happen to Emily, but he knew that the road ahead would be full of challenges and dangers. He was ready to face anything to protect that girl and discover the truth about the men who were chasing her. And so, with a heavy yet resolute heart, Thomas prepared for the battle to come. The following days were spent in constant vigilance and investigation. Thomas had contacted Jake, his retired police officer friend, who was now working discreetly to find out more about Emily's past and the men who were pursuing her. Meanwhile, Thomas tried to provide Emily with a safe and welcoming environment in his home, hoping she could gradually feel more at ease. One morning, while Emily and Lily played in the garden with Max, Thomas received a call from Jake. "Thomas, I found some information. The house where Emily lived with her grandmother is located in a very isolated area of the woods. From the descriptions I've gathered, it seems that Emily's grandmother was involved in something bigger. The men who invaded the house are linked to a criminal organization searching for a valuable artifact." Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. "An artifact? What kind of artifact?" "I couldn't get exact details, but apparently it's something of great historical or cultural value. I'm still investigating. Be careful, Thomas. These guys are dangerous." "Thanks, Jake. Keep me informed." Thomas hung up the phone and looked out the window, watching the girls in the garden. He needed to find out more about this artifact and Emily's connection to it, but he also had to ensure her safety. That afternoon, he decided to talk to Emily again. They sat in the living room, and Thomas began with a gentle approach. "Emily, I heard that your grandmother was involved in something important. Do you remember anything that might help us understand what these men are looking for?" Emily frowned, thoughtful. After a moment, she replied, "Grandma had an old trunk in the basement. She always told me never to open it, that there was something very important inside. Maybe that's what they want. Thomas nodded, feeling they were getting closer to the truth. Do you remember anything else about the trunk? Something that might help us find it? Emily shook her head. No, just that Grandma always locked the basement when she left. I never saw what was inside. Thomas knew he needed to go to Emily's house to investigate the trunk and discover what was happening. He called Jake and explained the situation. Jake, we need to go to Emily's house. I believe what we're looking for is there. Jake agreed, and they planned the visit for the following morning. The next morning, Thomas and Jake met at the entrance to the woods. The path to Emily's house was narrow and overgrown, but the two men were determined. When they arrived, the scene they found was desolate. The house was partially destroyed, clear signs of a recent struggle. Thomas and Jake entered cautiously, searching every room. When they reached the basement, they found the door locked, but Jake, with his investigative skills, managed to break it open. Inside the basement, they found the trunk Emily had mentioned. It was old, with intricate carvings and a rusty lock. Thomas and Jake exchanged looks before opening the trunk, anticipating what they would find. When they opened the trunk, they found a collection of old documents, maps, and a peculiar-looking artifact wrapped in a fine cloth. Thomas carefully unwrapped the artifact, revealing a small gold statue with strange inscriptions. Jake, this must be what they're looking for. We need to get this out of here and investigate further. Jake agreed, and they quickly gathered the documents and artifact, placing them in a backpack. They decided not to stay any longer than necessary, fearing the men might return. Back at Thomas's house, he and Jake began examining the documents. The inscriptions on the statue were in an ancient language, and the maps seemed to indicate the location of something even bigger. We need a specialist to decipher this, Jake said. I know someone who can help. Thomas agreed, feeling they were finally getting close to the truth. He knew the situation was still dangerous, but they now had a concrete lead. As Jake left to fetch the specialist, Thomas turned his attention to Emily. He needed to tell her what they had found and ensure she understood the importance of what was happening. Emily, we found your grandmother's trunk. There were documents and a very important artifact inside. I think this is what the men were looking for. Emily looked at him with wide eyes. Now what? Will they try to find us? Don't worry. We're taking all the precautions. You're safe here, and we're going to solve this together. Emily nodded, feeling a little more relieved but still scared by the situation. Thomas knew the battle was far from over, but he felt a renewed hope. With the specialist helping to decipher the documents and the artifact, they could discover the truth and protect Emily from the men chasing her. As they awaited Jake's return with the specialist, Thomas kept Emily and Lily close, determined to ensure everyone's safety as they unraveled the mystery surrounding the artifact. Days passed with growing tension in Thomas's house. Jake had managed to bring in an expert in ancient languages, Dr. Richard Henderson, to help decipher the documents and the artifact found in the trunk. Dr. Henderson, a kind-looking man with white hair and round glasses, dedicated himself to the work with great enthusiasm. While Dr. Henderson worked, Thomas tried to maintain a normal routine at home, trying to ensure Emily felt safe and comfortable. The girl spent most of her time with Lily, who had become her inseparable friend. One evening, while everyone was gathered in the living room, Dr. Henderson finally brought news. Thomas, I think I've managed to decipher the inscriptions and documents, he said with a satisfied expression. The artifact is an ancient ceremonial statue from a lost civilization known for its protective and healing rituals. But there's more. The documents indicate that this artifact is the key to finding a hidden treasure which has been sought after for centuries. Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. A treasure? That explains why those men are so desperate to find it. Yes, Dr. Henderson confirmed, but it's not just a material treasure. The documents mention something called the essence of life, which may have miraculous healing properties. Emily, who had been listening attentively, looked confused and scared. So, these men want the artifact because of its power? Exactly, Emily, Thomas said, trying to reassure her. But don't worry, we're taking all the precautions to keep it safe. Suddenly, a noise from outside interrupted the conversation. Thomas immediately got up and went to the window, seeing shadows moving in the garden. "They're here," he whispered, his heart racing. Thomas quickly closed all the curtains and locked the doors, instructing everyone to hide. He grabbed the phone and called Jake, who promptly promised to send help. "Everyone, to the basement now," Thomas ordered. Emily, Lily, and Dr. Henderson ran to the basement while Thomas checked the doors and windows one last time. He joined them, trying to remain calm. In the basement, Thomas hugged Emily and Lily, trying to convey a sense of safety. "Stay calm. Help is on the way." The minutes felt like hours as they waited in silence, listening to the muffled noises outside. Finally, the sound of approaching sirens brought palpable relief. Jake and a team of police officers stormed the property, confronting the men surrounding the house. The confrontations were intense, but the police managed to overpower the intruders. Jake went down to the basement, finding Thomas and the others hiding. "It's all over now. You're safe," he said with a reassuring smile. Emily hugged Thomas, tears of relief streaming down her face. "I was so scared." "I know, Emily, but it's all okay now. You're safe." In the following days, Thomas worked with Jake and Dr. Henderson to ensure the artifact was handed over to the appropriate authorities and protected. The investigations continued, and the men pursuing Emily were arrested and interrogated. Emily began to feel safer, knowing the bad men were behind bars. Thomas, Lily, and Dr. Henderson did everything they could to help her overcome the trauma. One day, while they were sitting in the garden, Emily asked Thomas, "What happens now, Mr. Whitaker?" Thomas smiled at her, a glint of hope in his eyes. "Now we'll make sure you have a safe and happy life, and we'll find out how to use this artifact for good." Emily smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She knew that with Thomas, Lily, and Jake by her side, she could face any challenge. The following week, Thomas received an unexpected visit. A middle-aged man, elegantly dressed and with an air of authority, appeared at his door. He introduced himself as William Carter, a renowned businessman. "Mr. Whitaker, I heard about your bravery and the care you took in protecting Emily. I believe she may be my daughter." Thomas was shocked but also relieved to finally get some answers. "Please come in. Let's talk." William explained that Emily had been kidnapped as a baby, and he and his wife had spent years searching for her. The descriptions and information provided by Thomas confirmed that Emily was indeed William's missing daughter. When Emily was called into the room, she looked at William with suspicion. Thomas approached and carefully explained the situation. "Emily, this is William Carter. He believes you are his daughter." Emily was silent for a moment before approaching William. He hugged her with tears in his eyes, and she finally felt a deep relief in finding her true family. "I'll never forget what you did for me, Mr. Whitaker," Emily said, gratitude in her eyes. "And we'll never forget you, Emily," Thomas replied with a smile. "You'll always have a place in our lives." With the arrest of the men and the discovery of her true family, Emily was reunited with her father, bringing joy and relief to both. Thomas was recognized for his bravery and dedication, receiving William's gratitude, who offered to help his family and a trusted position in his businesses. As life returned to normal, Thomas felt he had made a difference. He knew that despite the challenges, he had brought hope and safety to a girl in danger. And above all, he had discovered the true meaning of courage and compassion. With the truth revealed and Emily reunited with her biological father, William Carter, life in Thomas Whitaker's house began to return to normal. The tension that had hung in the air had dissipated, and everyone was focused on rebuilding their lives after the traumatic events. Thomas was invited by William to visit his mansion and discuss Emily's future. The Carters' home was grand, with lush gardens and impressive architecture. Upon arrival, Thomas was warmly welcomed by William and his wife, Margaret, who was still recovering from the emotion of reuniting with her missing daughter. "Thomas, we can't express our gratitude enough," William said, his eyes filled with tears. "You saved our daughter and brought hope back to our lives." Margaret, standing beside William, agreed. "We are eternally grateful. We want you to know that you will always be welcome in our family." Thomas thanked them humbly, feeling a deep connection with the Carter family. During the meeting, William offered Thomas a trusted position in one of his companies, recognizing his bravery and dedication. "You are a man of integrity, Thomas. We would like you to work with us, helping to manage our businesses. I know it may seem sudden, but I believe that together we can make a difference." Thomas was surprised by the offer but felt it was an opportunity to start a new chapter in his life. He accepted the proposal enthusiastically, ready to face new challenges. Meanwhile, back at Thomas's house, Lily and Emily had become inseparable. They spent hours playing in the garden, and Lily helped Emily adjust to her new reality. Emily, now surrounded by love and safety, began to recover from the trauma and feel more confident. One day, while the girls were playing with Max, Thomas received an unexpected visit. His neighbor, Sarah, and her daughter, Anna, came running, panic written on their faces. "Thomas, please, we need help," Sarah exclaimed, holding her daughter's hand. "Our house was set on fire, and I don't know where to go." Thomas immediately took them in, offering shelter and safety. He knew the fire was no coincidence and that the dangerous men were still after the artifact. "Stay calm. You're safe here. We'll find out what happened and ensure these men are brought to justice," Thomas said, trying to calm them. As Sarah and Anna settled in, Thomas and Jake began investigating the fire. They discovered that the men chasing Emily had sent goons to intimidate anyone who might be involved. Determined to protect everyone under his care, Thomas decided to act. He and Jake organized an operation to capture the culprits and ensure no one else was harmed. That night, Thomas gathered everyone in the living room and explained the plan. "We'll make sure these men pay for their crimes, but we need to be careful and work together." Emily, Lily, Sarah, and Anna listened attentively, feeling safer knowing that Thomas and Jake were in charge. The following day, the operation began. Jake and his team of police officers monitored the goons' movements while Thomas gathered evidence and prepared a detailed dossier for the authorities. The hours dragged on, and the tension was palpable. Finally, Jake received a tip about the whereabouts of the criminal organization's leaders. They were hiding in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Thomas, Jake, and the police team headed to the location, ready to confront the criminals. The operation was swift and efficient, resulting in the capture of all involved. The evidence gathered by Thomas was crucial in ensuring that the culprits were brought to justice. With the criminals arrested and the threat eliminated, the sense of relief was immense. Thomas returned home, where he was met with warm hugs from Emily, Lily, Sarah, and Anna. "You did it, Dad," Lily exclaimed, pride in her eyes. "I didn't do it alone, dear. We all worked together to ensure everyone's safety," Thomas replied with a smile. Emily hugged Thomas tightly, feeling a deep gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Mr. Whitaker. You saved my life and my family's life." Thomas gently stroked Emily's hair, feeling a wave of emotion. "I'll always be here for you, Emily. Always." The following days were spent rebuilding the lives affected by the recent events. Thomas helped Sarah and Anna find a new home, and William Carter offered financial support to ensure they could start over. Emily, now reunited with her biological family, continued to visit Thomas and Lily, maintaining the strong connection they had built. Safety and happiness were finally restored. The months that followed brought a sense of normalcy to the lives of all those involved. Emily quickly adapted to her new life with the Carters, and frequent visits to Thomas's house kept the strong bond between the two families alive. Thomas accepted the position offered by William Carter and began working in the company, where his legal skills and integrity quickly made him a respected figure. He found new purpose and satisfaction in his work, helping to protect and grow the Carter businesses. On a sunny autumn day, Thomas organized a lunch at his home to celebrate everyone's safety and well-being. William, Margaret, Emily, Lily, Sarah, and Anna were present, and the atmosphere was one of pure joy and gratitude. "Thomas, you've truly transformed our lives," William said, raising a toast. "To friendship, family, and a bright future." Everyone raised their glasses, toasting to the new phase of their lives. The meal was filled with laughter and lively conversations, with Emily and Lily sharing funny stories and Max running around the garden. After lunch, As the children played, Thomas approached Sarah, who was sitting on a bench in the garden. "Sarah, there's something I'd like to say," Thomas began, visibly nervous. Sarah looked at him, curious and a bit apprehensive. "What is it, Thomas?" Thomas took a deep breath, feeling his heart race. "Over the past few months, you and Anna have become part of our family. I've seen how strong and brave you are and how much you care for those around you. And, to be honest, I've realized that I feel something very special for you." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thomas, I feel the same way. You've been a pillar of strength and support for me and Anna. I don't know what we would have done without you." Thomas knelt, holding Sarah's hands. "Sarah, I know it may seem soon, but I'd like to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Sarah was speechless for a moment, but tears of joy soon streamed down her face as she answered, "Yes, Thomas, I will." The children's cheers and shouts of joy echoed through the garden as everyone ran to congratulate the couple. Lily and Emily were radiant with happiness, knowing their families would now officially unite. A few months later, in an intimate ceremony in Thomas's garden, surrounded by friends and family, Thomas and Sarah were married. The day was perfect, with the sun shining and flowers blooming all around. Emily, as the maid of honor, looked stunning in her dress, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Lily, by her side, couldn't contain her happiness seeing her father so radiant. During the reception, William approached Thomas and Sarah with a warm smile on his face. "You deserve all the happiness in the world. We're so happy for you." Thomas thanked him, feeling deeply grateful for finding a new beginning. He looked around, seeing all those who had become part of his life, and felt truly blessed. As night fell, the bright garden lights created a magical atmosphere. Thomas and Sarah danced under the stars, with their families gathered around, celebrating love, unity, and the promise of a bright future. As time passed, Thomas and Sarah built a life full of love and joy. Emily and Lily grew up together, sharing dreams and achievements. The bond between the two families remained strong, and the memories of the challenges they faced together only served to strengthen the ties that united them. Life in Riverside returned to being peaceful, but now with a depth of gratitude and appreciation for every moment of peace and happiness. Thomas continued to work with William, helping to expand the business and ensure the company thrived. One day, while walking through the garden with Max, Thomas stopped to reflect on how much their lives had changed. He looked at Sarah, Lily, and Emily, and felt a deep sense of contentment. "You are my family, my everything," Thomas said, embracing them. "I couldn't ask for anything more." And so, with love, courage, and unity, Thomas, Sarah, and their families built a future full of hope and optimism, ready to face any challenge life might bring, always together.